This is Shinsi, the social MMO released in 2009 and lasted for 7 months. One of its big selling points is that your avatar could be either a normal-sized avatar or what they called a Nendoroid-sized avatar. So what exactly is this game? This was purely a social game. It was not a RPG or anything of the sort. It was mostly described as a metaverse, a virtual world. Developed by Hobbystock, an online website that handles anime goods, they got the permission of Goodsmile Company to create and market characters in-game as Nendoroids. And this game was taglined as the combination of an avatar game with a creation market. Now, what does this tagline mean? The Nendoroids were a point of attraction for possible players, but it wasn't the main selling point. There were 3 main selling points, and the first one is that you had extreme freedom with your avatar. Not from simple item customization, but from the fact you yourself could create items, upload your own character models and textures. But if you didn't know how to do that, the second selling point was the creation of a 3D market for digital assets where you could obtain those character models and items created by other players. And the last selling point is that within this market, you could not only obtain avatars and parts for it, you could also obtain user-created games. The idea behind Shinsi was that it wanted to be a massive multiplayer online social game/platform that thrived from user-generated content. I have seen it being compared to Second Life, and I'm guessing for a more modern example, you could refer to VR chat. The game client had 3 different main options to choose from. The first one was to get into Shinsi and hop around the world, meet people and have fun in general. The second one was the Avatar 2. Despite the huge freedom of customization in Shinsi, ultimately, the Avatar 2 was more of a dress-up 2 with a 3D viewport. You couldn't modify models or textures in it, but it did have the ability to import them so you could use it in-game. But that also meant that to create these avatars, you would need a third-party software. Developers knew you could use Maya, 3ds Max, and XSI Mod 2, but they were also looking for other options such as Blender. And even to modify textures, you would need something like GIMP or Photoshop. But if you knew how to use these things, you could quite literally make your avatar anything based on the 5-headed or Nendoroid models. You could create something more basic, a fox girl, a schoolgirl, nurse, bunny suit, you know how it is. Hell yeah. But you can also be a stick figure, you can be a cow emoji, you can be an eyeball, you can be a seahorse. You're tired of your human body? Sure. You're tired of a body? Sure. You're tired of being? Sure. You're a railway gun. You're a space battleship. Be reborn as a vending machine. You want to make your character hold something? Yeah, someone might have created it. Have it hold a scythe. Have it hold a leek. Swords, tuna. Have it take a look at a telescope. Aw, look how happy they are fishing in that indoor pond. No, it's not a pond. It's actually just another avatar. It doesn't have to be confined into your avatar body. You have this whole area to play with. Now it looks like you're locked in a prison. It looks like you're enjoying the pool. Looks like you're driving a battleship. Have your character be a stall owner. You want to write something? 失敗して落ち込んだ元気出せ気にしない You could also write a car. Remember, you can mess around with textures. You have an Itasha now. People were just getting creative on which part to use for what. The cars were set on legs. They could be considered the equivalent of pants. Be fried shrimp, be sick, be dead, be dead. You could be anything within the 5-head or Nendoroid model schemes. Hell, you could be both. 5-headed tall mecha model with your Nendoroid of choice added to it. I recognize her. That's Queen Lavinia from Alice Parade. Honestly, this looks very good. People seem to be really into this amount of freedom. It's probably what they wanted to happen. You could even mess with emotes. For example, if you have a character holding a bowl of food and chopsticks while doing a crying emote set to a happy face texture, it just looks like it's enjoying a meal. And it was all happening throughout their in-game market. This was all user created and people had to use the in-game shop to obtain these things. Just to make one thing clear, the game didn't download those models and texture informations by default. Whenever you saw someone with a model or texture you haven't seen previously, you had to right-click on them and then download that information, otherwise it would be a black model with a question mark head. And that was the Avatar 2. The last option in the game client was the Game 2. Just like the Avatar 2, it was a tool for testing and uploading purposes. You couldn't make a game in it. You also needed third-party software, but this time you only had one option. Shinsi had the capability to run games developed in the Kitty Kitty 2 engine. The thing about Kitty Kitty is that it's mostly known for being used in the development of visual novels. Fate Stay Night and Tsukihime, for example. But it seems there were two types of scripts that could be used, KAG and TJS2. They claimed doing novel games with KAG was more approachable for beginners, and for other things the TJS2 script was used and was more appropriate for experienced people. But honestly, I have no idea what any of these means. To actually play those games, you did it inside the Shinsi world, single player and multiplayer that was done through peer-to-peer connections. If you played alone, you would either become a message that said currently playing, or you would have a mark on top of your head. If you were on a multiplayer game lobby and looking for people, you would become a big-ass monolith, and people could join that monolith, or you could invite other people as well. Now, of course, you saw the title of the video. Shinsi didn't work. But why? They didn't seem to have got the games they wanted. 1. Making games takes much more time than modeling an avatar. 2. Only being able to use Kitty Kitty seemed to be very limiting to the creators. 3. There didn't seem to be real big incentives to create games specifically for Shinsi. If you had the ability to make games for Shinsi, you could be making games for any other platform instead. 4. Even if games were made, they were either rudimentary or anything you could play anywhere else. They seemed to both had hoped that people would upload their already completed games in Shinsi, as well as join together to make new games. It doesn't seem that either happened. They also did a game contest with 1 million yen in prizes, and that was a good incentive. They didn't get enough entries. And they might have been pressed for time because the deadline was a month after the announcement. Not very surprising there weren't enough entries. 3 months after the official opening, they were already having problems with player count. 5 months in, it didn't feel like anybody was bothering to log in anymore. If there's nobody to play the games, there is no reason to make them, and so the game creation side of Shinsi just died. The world itself seems to have care put into it, but with nothing much to do besides seeing how it looks like, and it apparently being, according to a post I saw, in terms of RPG, it's like not being able to leave the first area. It just lost the interest of people. If I list every NPC I saw during this research besides the shops and tutorial, there are the random dancing NPCs, the apologizing boy and the girl who doesn't forgive, the NPC that's just called Frog, a boy in the forest, and a construction worker on a broken bridge that's dressed as the default boy avatar. There were also a few events, like a festival, a quiz tournament, and Itasha races. Yeah, I think that's all I saw. In 7 months, that was it. From everything they presented as an idea, the only one that thrived, and it did really well, was the avatar customization side. And here lies the problem with that side. The big majority of items were free. The creator had the freedom to choose if an item could be modified and if it was paid, and most of them chose them to be free. Nendoroid Miku was by far the most popular avatar, and Nendoroid Miku was 100% free. Matter of fact, I saw a blog that said that although the writer didn't look into it too deep, they claimed that there weren't even 10 people who made paid content. That's not good at all. Kinda hard to believe the number, but it does tell me that very little people did paid content. To put into perspective, 4gamer, a blog revolving around MMORPGs, claimed that on the very first beta test that lasted 2 days, there were over 1,600 uploads. I don't know how many of those uploads were shareable, but I know all the shareable ones were free because the beta test only allowed this option. If, on the official opening of the game, management decided to suddenly slap a price on those items, that would have been a little bit shady. And here lies the other problem with the Avatar 2. The Avatar 2 is really fun. For the people making the avatars. For the general public that didn't know how to use 3D softwares and even image editing softwares for the textures, it just became another glorified dress-up game with even less stuff to do compared to other options they might have had at the time. So how did they plan to make money exactly? Well, the first one is obviously the sale of user-generated content. Shinsi sold their in-game currency called Kero, where 1 yen was 1 Kero, and for every sale of paid content, Shinsi would detract 30% of the price of the sale as processing fees, and 70% would go to the creator. Of course, as you know, the whole market side of the game fell flat into its face, and so nobody was buying or spending Kero. Their next monetization plan seemed to be brand collaborations. At one point, Shinsi opened brand stores in-game. Good Smile Company had a shop selling the Nendoroid model of their mascot Gumako. Gonzo offered a shop for Cho Aniki, where you could buy models for Adon and Samson. And Hobbystock itself opened their own shop to sell a model of the Figma version of Billy Harrington in collaboration with Nico Nico. So these shops worked for both the sales of digital content and advertisement of real-life products. Another monetization plan seemed to be in-game billboards showcasing in-game and real-life products. Of course, if there's no one there to see the billboards and buy these promotional items, they also don't work. They had campaigns with online payment companies, but considering almost nobody bought Kero, I don't see this being meaningful. They had a collaboration with a 3D printing company as well, where you could create figures from your avatar. I'm not going to lie, this looks dubious. They looked washed and grady. Though it is exciting that it could be a figure of your avatar that you could make it look like anything you want, within the regulations of Shinsi. But this cost 12,980 yen without shipping. That was over $140 at the time. Keep in mind, an actual Nendoroid, Miku's Nendoroid for example, it went for less than a fourth of the price at 3,000 yen including taxes, and you could change poses and faces. This is just a prediction of mine, but I really don't think anyone used the service at all. Yeah, it just looks to me the whole operation bled money. Behind the scenes, developers seemed to be active, updates and bug fixes were definitely being sent out, and there were decent advertising attempts as well. But in-game it doesn't feel like they were doing much to entertain the players. It feels like they just said, here's a sandbox, make a castle, eat some sand, contract toxoplasmosis, and make sure to invite your friends. I'm guessing the name is pronounced Shinsi as both synthesized and Shinsei, which gives the idea of a new world. I'm sure many of you have heard the term Shinsekai, a new world, but all that happened was the end of it. At the very least, the apologizing boy managed to be forgiven, and so both of them got to see the death of the universe together. At one point, they even added an image too, with the intention of creating and editing comics for in-game distribution. It really feels they wanted to create a sort of otaku metaverse. Well, for every MMO that lived, it stands atop the grave of a dozen others, and Shinsei is just another one of those that failed to keep the attention of the people. Couldn't gather last standing users, couldn't survive, it is what it is. At the very least, people did visit for the closure of the game to say goodbye. Now, is there any lesson to be learned here? Not from me. I found this by pure accident while searching for sketchbook fan art and thought it would be interesting to look into it. That's the only reason I made this video. That's it, see ya.